Live. All right, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Tuesdays. I'm your host, Sebastien, the approved guy. And on this channel, we talk about a few different things, which we're going to get into, starting with living on purpose, velocity banking, infinite banking, personal credit and business credit, business funding, estate planning, asset protection, and succession planning. On today's video, as with every video on Tuesday, on every live stream, I will be starting off with a 10, 15, 20-minute short intro, really a little Bible study. Regardless of your faith, if you're visiting for the first time or if you're just checking me out, I promise you the information that I have to share with you is of great value, regardless of whatever you believe. Now, personally, I prescribe to my belief and my faith in Jesus Christ, Yeshua, Mashiach. He is my Lord and Savior, and because of him, I have grace to do what I'm doing. I'm still alive, living, and I have the opportunity to share and bless others with the knowledge and experience that I have. And that's why I call myself the approved guy. So last week, I touched on that, and we're going to jump right in. And again, make sure you stick with us, even if this is not your cup of tea at this portion, because we're going to get into the other topics. And definitely, I'd love for you to communicate and participate. So please make sure you're doing that. Join in on the conversation. All right. So last week we started off and I mentioned that the reason I go by the approved guy is because of Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, which says, do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed or who correctly handles the word of truth. So first of all, as I continue here, I'm not sure if anyone's listening on this live stream, but I definitely want to make sure everybody's hearing me. So hopefully the volume is coming through. You guys can hear me loud and clear. With that said, let's go over here and close this. And we're going to open this over here. Just make sure you guys are hearing me. Forgive me for my imperfection, as I'm still new to this. All right, so it looks like the live stream is playing.
So the lie detector results.
And, okay. So I have the chat on so I can see it over there. All right, beautiful. Okay, so let's get right back to it. So Timothy, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15 says, do your best to present yourself to God as one that is approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. And this is why I refer to myself as the approved guy. And the reason is that I believe I am approved by faith in Jesus. And what it says here is a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who currently handles the word of truth. So even though I'm saved by grace, I still have to present myself as a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. So the word of truth is the Bible for me. But a worker, so what is that exactly? So we're going to let the Bible interpret the Bible. We're going to look at things in context, and we're also going to look at language. So what is a worker? In Genesis chapter 2, verse 2 through 3. It reads, by the seventh day God had finished the work. So this is the first time the word work is mentioned in the Bible. So we're identifying what is a worker. So by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. So the work that God was doing was creating, right? And so if we continue here, we will see that the first time the word create was mentioned was at the very beginning, in the opening. So first, what happens here, it says, is that in the beginning. So God steps into space and time because he exists outside of space and time. So he steps into space and time and he begins to create the heavens and the earth. And as he creates the heavens and the earth, he creates everything. You know, the planets, the stars, the ocean, the seas, the animals. Everything gets created in 6 days. And on the sixth day, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27 through 28, it says, so God created man in his own image. So we are created in the image of God. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. And it says that God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So first he created us in his own image. Now I'm less concerned about whether that means he's this color or that color, if he had straight hair or curly hair, or if he had whatever, you know, that's important. And I know, in my own knowledge, how I identify him physically. But this is more about, in my opinion, his character. So the first thing we learn about God that he tells us about himself in the very first opening book of the Bible is that, first of all, he's willing to step into time and space. And number two, he created, and he started to create. He's a creator. And then the last thing he does is he creates man in his own image and after his own likeness. And so if the first character trait that he reveals about himself is that he is a creator, and then he created me in his image, that also means that I'm a creator. That means that you're a creator. That means that we're all creators, because that is a characteristic of God, right? Then he tells us, after he creates us, the very first thing he tells us is to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over it. So understand, he had just taken us, placed us in a garden, and then he tells us to be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the fowl of the air and over every living thing that moves on the planet. So he finished working on the seventh day, and then he rests. His work was creation. He created us in his image, and we are creators. And what makes this so interesting is that in Genesis chapter 2, verse 5, before he created us, it says that no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up. For the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. So at this point in this passage here, in this verse, what it's telling us is that he had not created anything to grow on the earth yet. No plant. And the reason why is there was no one to work the ground. So we were created in his image as creators. And then he created us for a purpose, which was to work the ground. But the streams came up from the earth and watered the whole surface of the ground. This is the very next verse. And then the Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living being. So we are created in his image as creators, and he created us for a purpose, which was to work the land that he had created, the shrubs, the land. There was no garden yet. So to work is to create. That's my interpretation. And to work is to manage. He says to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and subdue and have dominion. So he creates man and woman, created he them in his image as a creator. And in his creation, he set boundaries. He set rules. He created laws of gravity, laws of positive and negative, of hot and cold, of night and day. These are all rules. These are all laws that God created. So there are rules and laws to creation. It's not just random. And he takes us and before he lets anything grow on the planet, he makes sure that as soon as that happens, he creates a man and woman to care for the land as workers. And then he tells them, the very first thing he says to them is, in relation to the land, is he says, be fruitful. He tells them, be fruitful with this land. What does that mean? That means take good care of it so that it continues to grow. Then he says to multiply the land. So he mandated us to go and take this land that he gave us, this garden that he had created, that he set us inside of. He told us, be fruitful with this garden, multiply this garden, replenish the garden, subdue the garden, and have dominion over the garden and all of the earth, not other human beings, over the resources of the planet. Over the resources of the planet. The earth is a resource. The fishes, the sea, the air, the sky, water, everything on the planet is a resource for our benefit. And he wants us to be fruitful with that. He wants us to multiply it. He wants us to replenish. He wants us to subdue and have dominion. As far as I'm concerned, that's business 101. From the very beginning, God is telling us how to be a good manager of his resources and what he wants us to do with the resources that he has created for us. We are creators in his image. We have the ability to create. We all have different gifts and talents, different vocations that we specialize in. But if all we do is we work a job for someone else, and that's it, then we're helping someone else to be a creator and to be fruitful and to multiply. And we're helping them to fulfill their mandate. Now, you may have a job, and within your job, if you are creating and if you are able to be fruitful and multiply in your job, then you are fulfilling your purpose at this time and space. And this is what I believe. But outside of a job, we were designed as creators, and God gave us a roadmap right here where he says to us, create. After you create, be fruitful. Multiply, replenish, subdue, and have dominion. Now let's apply that. Let's apply that to any business model. Think of it. Think of this. Let's look at McDonald's. Major, billion-dollar company. So first, they had to create a unique product. Then, and that's being fruitful. They created something unique, something different, and then they multiplied it. Now, when you multiply it, that means you take it to the market. So first, you're fruitful by creating, then you multiply by taking it to the market. Then once you've sold all your product, you have to replenish it. And then you have to subdue all of the outside forces and energies that are coming at you now because now you've made a name for yourself. And you have to have dominion over your market. That means to dominate your market. These are kingdom principles and kingdom mandates that the King of the universe has given every one of us as human beings, and we have the right and the authority in Jesus' name to fulfill this mandate. Every single one of us have that ability within us to live this out. And when we live this out, we are living out the principle of stewardship, which means that we are good managers of another person's resources. Merriam-Webster Dictionary says that stewardship, there's two definitions: the office, duties, and obligations of a steward, the conducting, supervising, or managing of something, especially the careful and responsible management of something that is entrusted to one's care. The earth, the planet, the resources, they all belong to the King. We are stewards of those resources. A good steward is going to multiply. They're going to replenish, subdue, and dominate. That's what a good steward does. A creator is one that creates, usually by bringing something new or original into being. You're being fruitful. This doesn't just mean, being fruitful doesn't just mean to go have babies. That's what we were all taught. Yes, okay, fine. But that's not all it means. It means to create. So what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is one who organizes, manages, and assumes the risk of a business or enterprise. So think it through now. What is the difference between a garden and a wild bush? A garden is organized and managed, and it has order and purpose. If you and I, if all of man were created to be managers of the garden, that means that our job was to be a good steward of the resources that God gave us. We have access to these resources, and there's unlimited potential to be fruitful, to multiply, replenish, subdue, and have dominion. Again, right in the opening of the Bible, God teaches us how to be successful in life and in business by being fruitful, multiplying, replenishing, subduing, and having dominion. On this channel, I discuss living on purpose. And the reason I just went through those Bible verses with you is because that is what I believe to be not just my purpose, but all of our purpose. Now, we all have different gifts and talents. We all have different vocations and areas of expertise that we bring to the table. And when you start a business, it could be the purpose of that business is simply to generate revenue to fund your true purpose. Or it could be that business is your purpose. It is what you're gifted at, that you love to do. That is your purpose. Now, I talk about velocity banking because velocity banking's basic fundamental principle starts with understanding your four numbers. Your four numbers being your income, your outgoing expenses every month, your debt obligations, and then what's left over is your cash flow. This is the basic first number one principle of velocity banking. And then being a good steward of the resource that we use today, which is money. And that resource, if managed properly, we can then become creators and we can multiply that money and then replenish and then subdue and then dominate. That should be our goal. Velocity banking teaches you the basic principles, and then it adds the ability for you to speed up the process of managing and eliminating debt. Now, debt itself is not a bad thing. Debt itself is actually a good thing if it is leveraged properly. As a business owner, if you form a company and you borrow money, whether it's from a bank or any institution, because it's a business liability, when you make your monthly payments, that is a business tax deduction. And as long as you're floating debt, meaning you're not banking and putting that money back into your income bracket, you don't pay taxes on borrowed money. So if I have a choice to use 100,000 of my own dollars or 100,000 of the bank's dollars, even if I have the 100,000, it would be wiser for me to use the bank's dollars because I'm going to get a tax deduction on it, and I'm not going to pay taxes on the bank's dollars. My dollars, I'm going to pay taxes on. Velocity banking teaches us how to be good stewards of debt. And if your goal is to get rid of or pay off certain debts quickly and fast, velocity banking teaches you how to do that faster than some of the more conventional, traditional ways of eliminating debt. If you have any questions on velocity banking, please make a comment. Please send me a text or an email, and we can discuss that in more detail. Infinite banking is becoming your own bank by using a properly designed whole life insurance policy with a major mutual company, where you can allocate up to 90% of your payment or premium that you put into the policy towards cash value. So you basically are buying a life insurance policy that gives you a death benefit, which is generational wealth and legacy, and you're paying the minimum cost for that policy, and you're opening up a huge space where you can save your money instead of putting it inside of a bank account that's giving you nothing back in return except losing value because of inflation. Even if you can get a bank account with 2 or 3% growth on it, you're going to pay taxes on that growth. Inside of a insurance policy, a life insurance policy, you will not pay taxes on any of the growth. The growth in that policy can be between 3% guarantees up to 6%, and that's compounding interest. And the same principle we talked about as far as borrowing debt, you are able to use that policy as collateral and borrow against it. And that could be done on a personal level, and you can also borrow against it on your business or from your business, which means that you can basically get a business cash value line of credit, which your monthly payment will be a tax deduction, while your money is growing compounding interest, let's say up to 6% compounding interest inside the policy. It's safe, it's protected from litigation, and at the same time, you're able to use it through the policy loan, which is a tax deduction, and you're able to use that money and leverage it in your investments. This is not an investment strategy. This is a strategic saving strategy that allows you to give your dollar between 4 or 5 jobs, not just 1 or 2 jobs, but 4 or 5. So that is infinite banking. It is not a short-term, quick come up. It is a lifestyle adjustment that you will practice just like velocity banking for the rest of your life. Personal credit. Obviously, there's 3 major personal credit bureaus in the United States. So we have Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. In that area, what I do is I look at your credit with you, and we can dissect it and determine what you need to do to make it stronger, whether it's paying down balances on certain accounts, whether it's having a little bit more of a mixture of credit, if you need some seasoning and history on your credit. in today's world, there are these new fintech companies that have created products that are designed for building personal credit. These are like savings accounts where every time you put money into a savings account, it reports that as if it was a loan to your personal credit, and it allows you to build personal credit. So there's several accounts that can help you to build personal credit. Not a credit repair person or a company, but if you have needs for personal credit repair, which means late payments, collections, bankruptcies, things of that nature, too many inquiries on your credit, then I do have experts that I trust that I can refer you to clean up or remove derogatory issues off of your personal credit. So personal credit with my support is going to be anything related to building it and just understanding it, and then knowing how to prepare your credit profile so that before you apply for a loan, whether it's a car loan or a mortgage or a credit card, that you have the strongest personal credit profile that you can have based on your current circumstances. And so there's a lot of things you can do to prepare in advance to get the best results. And again, I don't want you to get access to credit as a way of overspending or of just having bad debt. The point is not to use credit irresponsibly, but is to be a good steward of that credit, be a good manager, and leverage it to your advantage. If you take good care of your credit and you leverage your credit properly, there's so many advantages. I mean, just for example, on credit cards, you can get access to 0% interest promotions for 12 to 24 months. There's cashback rewards, there's travel rewards, there's point systems. And if used properly, you can accumulate and rack up thousands and thousands of points and dollars in cash back. So technically, you can literally create a stream of revenue by leveraging credit properly. I like to call this the compound credit effect. So that's personal credit. Now, business credit is different. Business credit is based on the three major business credit bureaus. So we have Dun & Bradstreet, which is the first one. We have Experian Business Credit, and then we have Equifax Business Credit. Now, there are a few others out there, like there's PayNet, which is a division of Equifax, and they typically report to equipment financing and leasing companies. So building up your Equifax and a PayNet profile is very important if you're in any industry where you need to buy equipment, vehicles, and you're going to be leveraging lenders that look at PayNet. There are term loans, including SBA loans, that look at Dun & Bradstreet and Experian, and they pull data through a third party called the Business Credit Financial Services. So what they do is it's a third party that collects data and reports it to the SBA. So forgive me on that little fart there. But what they do is they report data to the SBA. They create a score called the SBSS score. That SBSS score is from 1 to 300. And if you have really good personal credit, there's a good chance your SBSS score is really high. It's over a 160. But if it's not, then having a good business credit profile is going to lift that up. But there are other lenders, not just SBA banks, that look at Dun & Bradstreet. Now, if you're looking at getting access to business credit cards, they don't look at Dun & Bradstreet. They're probably going to be looking more at Experian and Equifax. So the reason I'm saying all this is because I talk to so many people who tell me that business credit and building up your Dun & Bradstreet, that they heard that it doesn't matter. And that is just not true. It surely does matter. Building a legitimate business credit profile is going to matter. It's going to help you to get access to loans, lines of credit, and depending on which way you're going, you never know when you're going to need Dun & Bradstreet or Experian or Equifax. I've had clients win grants and win contracts with multi-million-dollar contracts where if they did not have a solid full business credit profile, they would not have won the contract. It was one of the criteria that the company that was hiring them was looking at, which is whether or not they had business credit. So in that case, it wasn't even a matter of getting approved for a loan or any kind of funding, but it had more to do with just getting winning the contract, the multi-million-dollar contract. So you never know when your business credit is going to be of value to you, but building business credit by itself is not going to override the need to have good personal credit. So you can't expect to get approved for funding with, terrible personal credit and then just focus on building your business credit. You need to have both of them in play. Your personal credit and your business credit are going to be very important, along with your financials, your business revenue. And that's something to keep in mind as you're growing your business. A lot of folks just want to write everything off and they want to show losses so they pay minimum taxes. But if you're looking to expand and grow your business, you need to be able to show that the business is growing, that there is a profit, that there's cash flow. So keep that in mind as you're growing. If your goal is to expand and grow and leverage debt in the future, you want to make sure that your books and your accounting is reflecting that on your business's tax returns. Okay. Business funding. So for over 10 years, I've been helping businesses get access to funding with everything from SBA 7A loans to equipment financing, asset-based lending, term loans, lines of credit, invoice factoring, receivables lines of credit, 0% credit cards, so many different ways of getting access to funding. At the very bottom of that list would be a cash advance. I urge everyone to try to stay away from that. The best thing you could do is get yourself in a position where you have good credit, good business credit, and qualify for a really good loan over a strong long-term, or even better yet, a line of credit. And again, that leads me back to the business cash value line of credit, which in my opinion would be the best possible way of financing your business. Again, that's going back to the infinite banking strategy and setting up a whole life policy with a major mutual company, funding it for max cash value, and then leveraging that as collateral to secure a line of credit in the business name. There's no better loan product or line of credit than that. So many different options depending on your need for financing, when you need the money. Is it something you need immediately? Is it something you can work on for the next few months, over the next year? What is your goal? When is your timeline? These are things that we have to look at to determine which business funding option is the most suitable and the best option for you now, as well as in the future as you're looking to expand and grow. So depending on your industry, that's another variable that has to be considered. If you're a real estate investor, you're looking to purchase properties. If you're a brick and mortar business and maybe you have bad debt, you want to refinance it. So there's unlimited. I could just go on and on about different types of funding and use of funds. But at the end of the day, we can help you get up to $5 million on funding over 10-year terms. And then funding could be as low as $20,000 if you qualify. Estate planning is going to be where you basically are setting up a trust. And there's two types of trust, generally speaking, that you want to consider. One is going to be a revocable living trust. This is probably the least expensive option. It's flexible where you can make changes in it because it's revocable. But you put your assets in that trust, including your will and testament. And inside the trust, your word is bond, which means that when your time comes and you die, your trust will define the rules of how your assets get dispersed to whoever you put in your trust as the beneficiaries, or the next trustee that you assign. So what this does is, just for example, let's just say you bought a house when you were 30 years old for $200,000, and then you have your children, your grandchildren. You're now 85, 90 years old. That house is now valued at $1 million. Well, if you transfer that title and give it to your grandchild or your children while living, and it's not in a trust, then they're gonna pay capital gains on that inheritance, and that's a huge expense that they're gonna have to pay for. Not just that, but if your assets are not in a trust, even before they do that, they're gonna have to go to probate court, pay court fees to be able to get access to your assets. So even if you have a will and testament, they will still have to go to probate court. But by putting your assets in a trust, then there is no probate court, and they don't technically gain ownership of the asset. The trust owns the asset, and the trustee or the person who controls the trust changes from your control to the person that you put as the next trustee. And so as a result, there are no taxes to be paid in that transfer of wealth. So this is how you can transfer wealth from one generation to the next and avoid taxes on major assets that would normally be taxed. And you can control when and how assets are distributed. So hypothetically, if you had a $10 million death benefit on a life insurance policy, life insurance death benefit is not taxable anyways, whether it's inside the trust or not, but you can assign it to the trust, and then through the trust, you can define exactly how you want that money to be dispersed to, your spouse or to your children or to your grandchildren. Literally, you can create rules and bylaws with if-then statements so that instead of your money being squandered and wasted, you don't want an 18-year-old or a young person who's never handled more than a couple $1,000s out of, inheriting $1 million, and then, they just waste it. So you can create rules and even like milestones that they have to achieve before they can access the money. And so what that basically does is it allows your will to continue while you're no longer on earth. Your money is now still being controlled by your will that you put in to your trust. That's what estate planning does for you. That's what it does for your protecting your assets and for distribution of funds and assets after you're gone. That's estate planning. So now asset protection and estate planning are different. Estate planning is going to really help you to control everything I just explained, right? Now, ideally, what happens is if you have a revocable living trust, when you die, the attorney that manages the trust is going to then change that into an irrevocable trust, and they're going to assign an EIN number, a tax ID, to the trust. Okay, so then it becomes irrevocable, right? But that revocable living trust while you're living does not protect your assets in the event that you have assets, whether it be luxury vehicles, whether it be properties or expensive luxury items like gold, diamonds, etc. These assets are vulnerable to litigation, to lawsuits, whether it be private or even the government coming after assets. And so a revocable living trust will not protect those assets because it's revocable. A judge could force you to change the rules or what you've written into the trust. And because it's revocable, it can be changed. But an irrevocable trust cannot be changed. And so a judge is going to have a much more difficult time forcing you to make any changes to your irrevocable trust. Now, there are domestic asset protection trusts, and then there are offshore asset protection trusts. And these are, whether you're going to go domestic or you're going to go offshore is really the level of protection you want to have is the question. And then what are you willing to spend to do that? This is not something for everybody because it's very expensive. And it only makes sense if you have a lot of assets that you really want to protect. But once you start getting assets, it's something you really want to consider. And of course, at the end of the day, it is a trust, so you can execute your estate planning like we just talked about through the revocable living trust, you can execute that through your irrevocable trust, which again could be a domestic asset protection trust or an offshore asset protection trust. And so this is, again, more designed to protect assets, but at the same time, it does allow you to protect for estate planning, for the transfer of wealth to the next generation, and to avoid probate. Okay, so that's the difference between asset protection and estate planning. And then finally, succession planning. Succession planning is super important. It's almost like, if you think about purpose, like we started off with, and if my purpose is only for me and for my own gain, then as a human being, what did I actually do to contribute to humanity, to the world, to the future? Okay, if I care about just me and my kids, that's good, that's important, but how did I contribute? If I become a business owner and I create jobs, the people that work in my company, they rely on my company for their living, for their income. If I care about them, I want to make sure I have a succession plan in place. And that succession plan is going to benefit them, it's going to benefit my family, and it's going to allow me to leave a true legacy, not just for my family, but for those people who followed me in life. So as a leader, my purpose, one of my purposes, should be to develop and create new leaders. And if you measure your success by how many people you're able to develop into leaders, here's the thing. If you're worried about sharing the knowledge and information you have and about other people getting what you're trying to get access to, then your thought process is it's wrong, because you're thinking as if there's a limit to how much there's out there, to the resources. God created this planet, and there's unlimited resources because the King created it that way. As long as we are good stewards by managing the resources properly and doing exactly what he said, to be fruitful, to multiply, and to replenish. That's a very important point right there, the replenishing. Because for resources to be infinite and to remain available with no limit in terms of potential, that means that we have to create systems that sustain that type of growth, whether it be our farming, whether it be our economic structure, whether it be the water that we drink, the air that we breathe. If we don't take care of this planet, and we don't take care of the air, we don't take care of the creatures, that fertilize the plants, that create the oxygen, then the resources will eventually be diminished. But God's not going to let that happen. Before that happens, he will come and claim this earth, and there will be a judgment at that time. With that said, being a good steward in all aspects of life, from the relationships that you have, the money that you get, the food, the air, the water, your business, it's all about being a good manager. When I was younger, I used to pray and I used to ask God to make me a successful person. I don't pray for that anymore. I pray to God to help me to be a good manager of his resources, and all of the gifts that I receive, all of the rewards that I receive from the work that I do by being creative and being a good manager, all of that is from the King. And so I have no problem giving back to the King what is his, which is called the tithe. I have no problem doing that. It's a joy to do that, and it gives me confidence that I am participating and cooperating with the king in his kingdom based on his government that he established on earth and under his authority. And in doing so, in living this way, you will find peace. You will find that living in gratitude and with a heart and a posture of giving is the most rewarding way to live. Succession planning is lifting other people up to positions of leadership within your own organization or network, setting them up to continue to run your business. So if you pass away or you just decide to retire from your operations and from the business, someone can step up into that position and continue to run the business. One of the best books I have ever read, and I'll be reading this book during future live streams and as a book study, is the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. And this book it teaches you the 21 rules or laws, really, and they're undisputable laws of leadership. And one of those laws has to do with succession planning. And it has to do with lifting up a leader and putting them in a position of power. Because if your business needs you to be present for it to be successful, then is it successful? I don't think so. A successful business should be able to continue to function, be profitable, and produce abundance with or without your presence. As a matter of fact, the best business models that have lasted the test of time after the CEO or the president has passed away, they do even better. And it's not because he didn't do a good job. It's because he did a good job of succession planning, of creating and producing leaders to step into roles and positions of authority to continue to manage and run the business, which is going to continue to bless his family, the original business owner, as well as all of the people and families that are in that business. Succession is the only word in the English dictionary that has the word success in it. So if you don't have a succession plan, are you truly successful? Well, with that said, I've talked here for about 47 minutes, and it doesn't look like anyone was joining the live, which is perfectly fine. I'm doing this out of my heart as a teacher because I believe that this is my purpose. And so I do this to honor God and to bless others. And so if you're watching this on the replay, I hope you get great value from it. In the description below on the video, you'll be able to schedule a call if you'd like to have a free consultation, and you'll see links to some of my other business services as well as some of my business partners. I do want to just give out some names of my mentors that you can do research on. One of them is Dr. Myles Munroe. Myron Golden is another one you should look up. Denzel Rodriguez, Chris Kirkpatrick, and then the Business Guy YouTube channel. You'll get great value from these people and their YouTube channels. And again, if you have any question, please schedule, please reach out. If you are on the live stream, I see someone just said, hi, I'm here. Okay. Hey, Markham. Is that Andrew? Thank you for visiting, brother. If you're the only one, I got 2 likes. Look at that. I didn't even notice it. Well, before I go, since it looks like there might be 1 or 2 people watching, maybe 4 watching, does anyone have any questions about any of these topics? Living on purpose, velocity banking, infinite banking, personal credit, business funding, estate planning. Please throw out a question. It makes the live much more of an experience, of a conversation. So I'll just give it a sec if anyone has a question. If no questions, then we're gonna go ahead and wrap up for the evening. Give it a few more seconds. All right. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions coming in. So with that, I just want to say thank you again. Please make sure, if you haven't, check out the channel in more detail, subscribe and share. And I want to just bless you and thank you for watching. I'll see you again next Tuesday, same time, same place. And hopefully we'll have some more audience and some more questions, and we can get into more of a conversation. With that said, be well. God bless you. Take good care.